The world is hurting right now, and it's time to rise up. As we lift ourselves up in body, mind, and spirit, we can reach out to others and be a light in a sea of darkness. Welcome to the Movement for Global Health with your host, Dr. Mary Zennett.
Brendah Kihara is a registered and licensed nutritionist. She is passionate, reliable, and hardworking. She's currently working as nutrition and dietetics educator. She has expertise in multiple areas, including medical nutrition therapy, in critical care and oncology nutrition, nutrition education, and many more. Brendah is a member of the President's Awards in Kenya, which is an award which is a member of the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award Association. She joins us today with such an important topic. It is nutrition and cancer prevention. Brendah, it is an absolute privilege to have you here today.
Thank you for having me, Mary. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, we can't wait to hear with what you have to say. So I see you've got a PowerPoint presentation. So let's get started.
Okay, so for ease in transition of the slides, I will first stop my video and then I can maybe put it back on towards the end when we have maybe a question and answer session. Is that okay?
Oh, yes.
All right, thank you.
So we will, okay, you'll stop the video. Okay, and then we'll have the presentation.
All right, thank you so much. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you'll be listening from and what time you'll be listening at. So today we are talking about nutrition and cancer prevention. And I believe the topic on cancer is a topic that brings emotion to all of us. And so one of the most important things that we can actually do is focus on prevention, put our efforts on prevention so that we can see the numbers, you know, the global statistics at least going a bit lower. So of course, I'm going to start with the statistics so that we are able to understand the magnitude of this issue that we're dealing with. So on your screens, you can see the global map, and I just want us to focus on a certain areas, and we're going to use the color blue. I'm hoping this is blue, color blue, and the two different shades of gray, because now these are what are going to help us understand the next slide. If you look at this, these are continents. I think we have parts of Australia, actually all of Australia. We have parts of Asia. We have parts of the Europe. We have parts of Middle East. We have Africa, like you can see on your screens. We also have parts of the United States of America. And these are issues in terms of overweight. And so I want us to just follow me to the next slide so that you can understand what I'm talking about. So looking at the global cancer statistics, you can see these are the same areas that have quite a lot of numbers. If you look at the United States of America, you look at parts of Canada, you look at parts of the United Kingdom, Europe, looking at Australia, looking at the lower south, the South America, parts of United States of America, still parts of Africa, it means that this is an issue. And just going back to the previous slide, we cannot be able to relate that nutrition or being overweight, and overweight is a form of overnutrition, relates quite directly to the cancer that we have seen, like we can see on the screen there. So we're going to be looking at a number of things that you can actually focus on to help reduce the cancer statistics. And this is actually data that was reported in 2020, and this is all cancers, both sexes, 5 years onwards. So you can see this is a grave matter. This is something that we need to start paying attention to right now. So approximately 50% of all cancers can be prevented by adoption of the healthy lifestyle. So here we need to keep in mind things like body weight. We need to keep in mind your diet, which here we are looking at the plant-based diets and limiting some of these foods. Physical activity levels are also very important. And the reason why we're saying 50%, it's because cancer has other causes, right? We have things like heredity, the genetics. So these are the other factors, environmental factors that we're exposed to. These are the other things that can actually cause cancer. But now when you're looking at diet, it accounts for 50% of what we can actually do to prevent some of these cancers. So we'll be discussing each point, and we're going to start with the healthy body weight. So you can see on your screens there, we have some of the things that we use to assess somebody's overall health. And we have the BMI, and we have the different ranges of BMI from underweight to extremely obese. And at times BMI can be quite limiting. We need to understand that. And the reason being is that we have people who have built muscle. And so with more muscle, it means that this person is going to appear quite heavier on the scale. So we can't always rely on BMI. So we have other alternative markers like the waist circumference. You can see that on your right side. Right. Yes, on your right side, you can see we have the physician there or the health worker there who's taking the waist circumference for that gentleman. And these other alternative markers are also very important whenever we are talking about issues of fat distribution, because fat distribution is very key. Fat that is distributed around the abdominal area accounts for a lot of the metabolic complications that we see. Things like diabetes, type 2 diabetes is quite common when you're looking at people with abdominal obesity. We have others like hip circumference, waist to hip ratio. We also have the mid-upper arm circumference, or what we call MWAC in short. These are all other alternative markers to BMI. So it's very important that you have this checked. So I'm thinking that most times we are almost always, focusing on the BMI. You know, your BMI is healthy, all right, that is enough. But no, it's not enough. You need to focus on the fat distribution, because fat distribution also dictates the kind of diseases you'll be predisposed to or you'll be exposed to. So those are some of the things we can actually be focusing on. And whenever you're looking at, well, I have not put the ranges for the waist circumference, but if you can write it down somewhere, we have the low risk or the most acceptable numbers for waist circumference. For men, we have below 94 centimeters, right? Or below 37 inches. That is the safest an adult male can be. So if you're looking at an adult female, a waist circumference of below 80 centimeters or a waist circumference of below 31.5 inches, that is the safest you can be in terms of helping you reduce your chances of getting predisposed or exposed to some of these non-communicable conditions. We also have a waist to hip ratio, and you actually get this by dividing your waist circumference by your hip circumference. So for men, your waist to hip ratio should be below or at 0.5. If you are a female, it should be at 0.75. So let us keep some of these numbers or figures in mind, because these are some of the things that we can actually get to do from the comfort of our homes. You don't actually have to visit a health facility to have this checked. So let us keep some of these things in mind. So now, when we're looking at body weight, so what is it that we can do to ensure that we're maintaining a healthy weight? So there on your screens, like you can see, we have the dietary guidelines for weight control. And the thing that we need to remember is, one, you need to increase the low energy dense foods. So energy is same as calorie, right? So I hope we won't get confused there. So when we're talking of low energy, we're also talking of low calorie foods. Some of these foods are the vegetables, the fruits, legumes, whole grains, and any other food that is of high fiber content. So these are the foods that we need to increase. The reason being is because these are the kinds of foods that provide low calories, right? The other thing we need to reduce, that was increasing. What we need to reduce then is the high energy or the high calorie food. These are the fast foods. These are the junk foods, the foods that we are more likely to snack on. Let me use that term. You know, between your main meals, you feel a bit hungry. These are your go-to foods. Yeah. So these are the things that we actually need to reduce. And towards the end, we're going to be looking at some of the tips that we can actually include on our day-to-day basis to just ensure that we are in this, we are helping ourselves in terms of ensuring that we're eating healthy to control our weight. The other thing we can use are the pictorials I have placed on the screen there. We have the plate model. The plate there is divided into three. The first half on the top, we have the fruits, we have the vegetables, and then we have the second half, which is further divided into two. There we have the carbohydrates and the protein. So you can see we're still emphasizing on the aspect of low energy dense, increasing these foods, the low energy dense group or the low calorie foods, and then reducing, like you can see, you can compare a quarter to a half. So we have really reduced the high energy dense foods. In addition to that, we have also, just a minute. If you look on the right side, oh, it's my right, I'm hoping it's your right as well. You can see what we call the Zimbabwe hand jive. So this is just how you're supposed to ensure that your plate or how you, whatever you're serving on your plate, you have somehow estimated that using your hand, right? So we have the starch, and whatever you serve on your plate should be one fist. Just one fist, that is enough for the starch. And if you actually compare to that plate model, it goes hand in hand, because one fist is not too big, which is going to be a very small portion on your plate. The other fist there is the fruits. So whenever you're serving fruits on a bowl, on a platter, it should be equal to your fist. When you're looking at proteins, we have the palm of your hand. This is palm of your hand only, excluding the fingers. So the serving of your protein should be equal to that. The other thing that's not labeled, we can see two palms, 2 open palms, and that is the serving for the vegetables. They should be as many as your hands can hold. So like you can see, it actually translates to the plate model. So as much as your hands can hold, that should be the amount of vegetables that you should be eating. When you're looking at the very last one, we have a person with his thumb out, and that is the fats and the oils. So that is very little. It's because the fats, the oils belong to this class of what we call the high energy dense food. So you really want to reduce that to ensure that your weight remains in the normal healthy range. Just down here, you can see the caloric density of different foods. So if you're looking at all of these foods, all of these foods are 500 kilocalories. So they are all providing an energy of 500 kilocalories. And like you can see there, for the fats, it's very little. It's occupying a very small portion in your stomach. When you look at the processed carbohydrate, there is some, there's a big space after the carbohydrates. The protein, the space is reducing, but now for the fruits and the vegetables, it is filling your stomach. And now this is what makes us feel full, because the fruits, the vegetables are very high in fiber, and fiber contributes to the satiety feeling. That's why we feel full, even if we've not eaten a very large portion of it. And this is the importance of including the fruits and the vegetables, because we are more likely to eat excessive of the carbohydrates and excessive of the fatty foods because they barely make us feel satisfied. But yes, when we include the fruits and the vegetables, it is going to help increasing the satiety value because of the fiber. Later on, we're going to be seeing benefits of the fruits, the vegetables, and the fiber content of that. But these are some of the ways, these are some of the things that we can actually do to ensure that, whatever portion we're serving on our plates and factors like those, we are actually keeping it on the range to ensure that our weight does not go way overboard, because we have seen now with weight, you're more exposed to the non-communicable diseases, including cancer. So next is reduction in alcohol consumption. And well, alcohol becomes alcohol because of the ethanol that is present in it. And ethanol is actually classified as a carcinogen, or it helps in the carcinogenesis process. So like we can see on our screens there, alcohol is linked to these cancers, the head, neck, colon, is basically swellings, and some of these swellings actually continue and grow to become cancerous. So that is the other issue we have there. It also affects, or it actually interferes with the estrogen pathway, and that is why we are seeing breast cancer. So women who consume alcohol are more at risk of developing breast cancer, because we are seeing that the estrogen is usually affected. The estrogen pathway is usually affected. So one of the causes of cancer is also the hormones. So now you can see the interaction between the hormonal issues and the alcohol, and how bad things can turn out. So I think it's best that we don't actually reduce, that we actually avoid alcohol. If you can avoid alcohol, it would be best, just to ensure that you're not increasing your risk for some of these cancers that we're seeing here. The other thing that we need to do to ensure that we are reducing our risks for developing cancer is increasing physical activity level. So it's very important that we are active. And being active here, at times people think that being active is like what you just do on a daily basis, not the extra things you do. I wake up, I go to work, come back home, and that is exercise enough. But exercise is actually the extra things that you do apart from your routine. So if something is part of your routine, that is not exercise per se. But you can modify your routine in that you get out exercise out of it. So let me give an example. So let's say somebody walks to work, and they walk to work for maybe around 20 minutes. So they can decide, all right, on this and these days, a number of days, I'm going to set my time and make sure that I walk to work in 10 minutes. Right? So that is exercise, because it means that you're going to increase your pace. And when you increase your pace, it moves from just doing some form of normal things. It becomes a rigorous activity that you're doing, which is going to increase your heart pace, your breathing rate. And now that we can call exercise. So exercise, we don't need to and at times when we talk of exercise, people think that, oh, it's compulsory that I sign up for gym membership. If you can, that is good. But there are people who are so busy that they actually don't have time. So it's very important that you're looking at what are those things that you do during the day. What are those things that you can modify, to create space for something extra apart from the routine. Exercise is very important whenever we're looking at the aspect of weight loss or weight control. It is going to ensure that you remain in the healthy range. So that is why we need to increase physical activity levels as much as possible. So for those who are so good at maybe timing themselves, you can aim for 30 minutes of rigorous or very active, I don't know if that is the right word, activity on a daily basis. Or if rigorous is not good for you, maybe based on a health condition that you have, you can aim for 60 minutes of moderately rigorous activity. You can go for a walk, you can take your pet out, something like that. You can go shopping if you're used to someone else doing the shopping for you. Factors like those are what we can do to actually modify our day to ensure that we are including the physical activity or the exercise part in our daily lives. So the other thing we need to focus on is that we need to increase on plant-based diets. So if I would just take you back a little bit on our plate model, if you can look at what is more on our plate, there is the fruits and the vegetables. Yeah, and these are what we now talking of the plant, because these are the things that we get from plants. So it's very important that we are consuming more of the plant-based diets. And the reason for this is because, one, plants contain what we call phytochemicals. So in the next slide, I will be showing you exactly what do I mean by phytochemicals. The other thing is that plants, here we're talking of the fruits and the vegetables, also contain the vitamins and the minerals. Some of these vitamins and minerals are very important whenever you're looking at how our cells function. In addition to that, they also help in prevention of infection. So that's why we really need to be having more of, the plant-based compared to any other things. So, and let me just say something here. Whenever we're talking of plant-based diets, somebody can think that I'm actually promoting vegan or vegetarian diets. No, that is not what I'm doing. I'm saying that yes, if you're not vegan or vegetarian, you can still increase the number of plant-based foods that you eat. We're not talking of completely eliminating the animal-based products, things like eggs, meat, milk, all of those things. All I'm saying is that we need to increase this, because now when you're looking at the fruits and the vegetables, they have more benefits compared to what we would get from the animal-based foods. The other thing, in addition to phytochemicals, vitamins, and minerals, is high fiber. And on our screens, we can actually see the importance of high fiber diets. And I am really tempted to go back, so I will. If you look at our calorie density of foods, we had talked of satiety, and you can see here that when you consume fruits or a diet that is rich in vegetables, because of the fiber content of these foods, this food is going to, you know, give more satiety value compared to any other foods like that we are seeing here. So that is the same concept whenever we are talking of increasing the satiety value. And whenever we increase the satiety value, it also helps in ensuring that we are not snacking on the unhealthy foods. We are not consuming the unhealthy foods, which is very important. Yes, which is very important. Excuse me a little bit. I am seeing, do you have, Mary, do you have anyone who's requesting to join?
I did, and I let them in, but then it's now it's the two of us. Yeah,
Oh,
I had,
okay.
so I did allow them, but then I don't see them anymore.
Okay, no problem. Okay, thank you for that. So I think we can now proceed. I was talking about the satiety values. So it means that you won't be snacking on the fast foods or what we call the junk foods, the foods that are very high in carbohydrates, the foods that are very high in fat, the foods that are very high in sugar, which actually exposes you to becoming overweight. And when you become overweight, you have more risk of developing some of these non-communicable diseases, including cancer. So that is one of the major benefits of the fiber. The other thing about fiber is that it increases the excretion of the toxic substances from our gastrointestinal tract or from our intestines. So there's a lot of buildup of the food that we eat that has not been excreted. There's a lot of buildup of that, and especially when you're looking at individuals who consume diets that are low in fiber. So it's very important that we're including fiber to help in excretion of some of these substances so that they do not build up in our bodies and expose us to health risks. In addition to that, high fiber means that these foods are going to be low in low in fat, and we have seen one of the dangers of fat. Fat is going to increase your chances for you becoming overweight or obese, and that exposes you to something like cancer. So these are some of the things that we can actually keep in mind. And now I want to take you to the next slide where we are going to actually see what do we mean by, phytochemicals. That is so pretty. Yes, the nutrition rainbow is so beautiful. And well, we may think that these fruits are this colored for just aesthetic reasons, but no, it's not just for aesthetic reasons. We have other reasons. The colors that we see that are very attractive, they are color pigments. And these color pigments are actually compounds, right, that help to protect our bodies from infection, from malignancies, cancers. So that's why it's very important that we are now eating more of the plant-based foods. I think this is so beautiful just looking at it. So you can imagine the amount of health benefits it can actually give, right? Because when you're looking at these phytochemicals or these color pigments, they are very important whenever you're looking at aspects of ensuring that your metabolism is going like it should, ensuring that we have the cell pathways are going like it should, because whenever cancer sets in, one of the things that is usually affected is the cell function. So things like cell apoptosis or cell death damages the DNA, which still is going to affect the functioning of that cell. So whenever we are looking at some of these phytochemicals and consuming a majority of these, all of these, it helps in ensuring that our cells are functioning like they should, and above all, our immune system is functioning like it should. It is constantly on the lookout to protect you from the cancers and from infections. So I hope you can now see why I was stressing so much on the plant-based diet. So the next thing we need to focus on is limiting red and processed meat. So red meat is beef, pork, lamb, mutton. Usually before, people thought that pork is white meat, and I really didn't understand why they thought that, but pork is actually red meat. It's not, it's not white meat. Processed meat. So this is a term that is usually thrown around quite often, and we can actually get misplaced somewhere in between. So processed meat, what do we mean by processed meat? So this is meat that is preserved by smoking, by curing, by salting, or by use of the chemical preservatives, like the chemical preservatives listed there. So this is, of course, the kind of meat that we're going to find in our supermarkets. And let me tell you, these meats are very attractive. They are so enticing, you just want to go and pick it, but we need to be on the lookout for these kind of foods. Reason being, one is that they are very high in saturated fat. I think we have looked at how fat can be a contributing, or a high fat diet can be a contributing factor to development of cancer. The other thing is sodium, and I will be discussing more about sodium in the next slide. But when you're looking at the process of preservation by salting, it means that we are using some sort of sodium, because when you take salt, it is basically sodium and chloride. Sodium chloride is what makes salt. So anything that is preserved by salting, yeah, is going to be very high in the sodium. The other thing is that some of these chemical preservatives, we have different, we call them strength of evidence, where we have limited evidence, we have convincing evidence. You find that for chemical preservatives, there is convincing evidence that these preservatives are actually linked with cancer development or carcinogenesis. So that's why we need to be on the lookout on how often are we eating these kind of foods. And at times I'm always telling the people I'm interacting with professionally that these are the kinds of foods that we should be eating like luxury. So whenever you're looking at something that is luxurious, you don't use it on a daily basis, right? You use it on certain days, specific days, not on every day, because the moment you're using it on a daily basis, you are exposing your cells to exposure of some of these preservatives, which we have seen have convincing evidence that they have been linked to cancer formation. And so it's very important that we are reducing our, the number of times that we consume these kinds of food in a week. The other thing that actually makes this group of concern whenever we're talking about cancer prevention, it's because of the cooking method. So whenever we are talking of cooking meat, because of issues of food safety, we are always using high temperatures. So you find that some of these compounds that make red meat red, if they interact with the heat, it leads to the formation of the carcinogenic compounds. So that's why I'm saying we really need to be very careful on the use of these products, these meats, the beef, the pork, the lamb, the mutton. And these are the foods that provide us with majorly protein. We can also get protein from legumes and cereals and nuts. So why don't we actually substitute the daily use of some of these foods with healthy options like those, because those are better options compared to the processed meats that we are talking about here. So we have a limitation here, or we have the healthy range of how we're supposed to limit this kind of foods. So it is, according to the imperial system, you're supposed to limit your red meat and processed meat consumption to less than 18 ounces per week. So you're the one who knows how you're going to distribute that throughout the week. Or if you're in the matrix system, you can actually have three portions of between 350 to 500 grams per week, and that is sufficient. The moment we're talking about consumption of some of these foods, I say they majorly give us proteins in addition to other vitamins and minerals. But now the important thing that we need to keep in mind here, we have other alternative, healthy alternatives that we can actually substitute. In addition to that is that we don't have to consume this kind of foods on a daily basis, right? We don't have to, it's not compulsory. And when you're looking at when we're in adulthood, we don't need excessive amount of protein, because one of the major function of protein has actually decreased because we're adults. One of the major functions of proteins is growth and development. So the moment you're in adulthood, it means that that function has reduced. So your consumption of some of these kind of things should also go down, so that it can protect you from exposure to some of these things that we're talking about, like cancer, and of course the other non-communicable diseases. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is limiting salt consumption. And salt, like I had said previously, is used as a chemical preservatives when you're looking at the salting method. So salt is basically sodium and chlorine. Sodium chloride makes up salt. And now sodium has a danger because it causes inflammation of the stomach lining. And now, one of the things we had mentioned earlier is that inflammation is also another thing that could expose you to cancer. So that's why we really need to be very careful with the amount of salt that we are using. So usually you're supposed to aim, the recommended dietary allowance for this is 2,300 milligrams, which is equivalent of 1 teaspoon daily. So I can imagine that we actually consume more than this if we salt our foods. You know, your food is ready on your plate, ready to serve, ready to eat, you add more salt. Whenever you are probably just working or are just around the house, probably you have salty snacks, yeah? So you end up consuming more than you should, so which is a risk, and we can actually avoid that by, like we have seen there, avoid salt preserved foods. And we are going to be seeing later on the tips that it's very important that we start cultivating the culture of reading food labels. You can be able to tell, okay, this product that I'm getting from the supermarket, does it have way more sodium that I should be taking, or is it in the normal range? So that's why it's very important that, you know, we are very extremely careful with what we're eating. We are in the age where whenever you're looking at something like salt consumption, increased salt consumption, it does not just increase your risk for developing cancer, it also increases your risk for developing hypertension or high blood pressure. So that's why we really need to be careful, because some of these risks do not just fall directly under cancer, they fall under other diseases. So as much as you may not get cancer, you may expose yourself to getting other diseases. So let us be on the lookout for some things like this. So here we are on the wellness tips. These are some of the things that we can actually do on a daily basis. So, well, we may not be able to follow everything that I have said on my presentation, but these are some of the small things that we can actually incorporate to just ensure that, you know, we're in the healthy weight range, we are eating the right foods, factors like those. So the first thing is be keen on portion sizes. This is very important. You should be very, and I think at least I have provided a number of tips on how to do that. You have the plate model, we have the hand jive. Those are very important. We have others like carbohydrate counting, but the simpler ones are the hand jive and the plate model. Whenever you're serving food on your plate, ensure that you're very keen to ensure that, you know, do not overdo, especially the carbohydrates, you know, the proteins, and especially the animal proteins, which may be very high in fat, right? You're focusing on ensuring that you're increasing the amount or the portion of your vegetables. So some of these things may not happen in a day or two, or you just wake up and say that from today onwards I'll be doing this. Changing behavior can be unlearning behavior. Let me use that word. Unlearning unhealthy behavior and adapting healthy behavior is not a one-day thing. It's something that you do progressively. So before you were serving a teaspoon of vegetables on your plate, you can decide, okay, so I'm going to start serving 2 teaspoons, and maybe within maybe a range of something like a month or 2 months, you're able to achieve the half plate portion. So those are some of the things that we can actually keep in mind. The other thing is eat a variety of vegetables and fruits. I think we have seen from the nutrition rainbow, it was looking so good, and just as good as it looks aesthetically, it's also very important whenever it comes to how our body functions, how our cells function, how are things in our gastrointestinal tract. So eat a variety. And why do we talk of variety or diversified? It's because different vegetables, different fruits are going to provide you with different vitamins and different minerals. So that's why we need to keep up the that component of diversification or variety. The other thing we can do on a daily basis, or we can start to do, is eat fruits daily as snacks. So usually we're supposed to have the 3 main meals and then 2 snacks in between. And in most cases, we actually have our snacks are actually carbohydrate foods, foods that are packed with lots of fat, foods that are packed with lots of sugar. So we end up actually not taking fruits. So we can actually substitute what we take as snacks, between breakfast and lunch. What you take in between, have a fruit, right? We can also substitute our carbonated drinks. We're having a lot of sodas nowadays. We're having a lot of the packed fruit juices nowadays. And now let me explain something. Sugar is also another thing that it can expose you to having something like diabetes. Sugar, if you're not physically active, it means that this sugar will be converted to fat. And if it's converted to fat, it means that you're now going on the side of overweight or obesity. So we really need to be very careful on how we use sugar. If we can actually substitute some of these sugary carbonated drinks with water and with fruits, it's actually very important. We can actually do something that is very simple, that every 2 hours, have a glass of water. Every 2 hours, have a glass of water. And nowadays we're having like even apps on our phones that we can actually use to remind us, because some of us get really busy, and as much as you're busy, it's work that is draining your energy, so you will opt for the sugary, for the carbonated. But if we have a reminder on your phone or something like that, sticky notes, just something you can do to just remind yourself that every 2 hours I'm supposed to take a glass of water. That will go a long way in helping you reduce the amount of sugar and carbonated drinks that you're having. The other tip is avoid resalting as much as possible. If food has already been served and it feels less salty than you prefer, you'd rather add a few drops of lemon juice than adding the salt. I think we have seen the impact salt has. So if you're not exposed to cancer, you are exposed to high blood pressure. So that's why we really need to be on the lookout for these things. And something maybe I forgot to mention is that some of these conditions are not conditions that if you eat unhealthy today, tomorrow you have cancer. It's something that builds up over time. The small things that we do on a daily basis, that is habit. And so we really need to be, we should be on the lookout and just see, okay, where am I missing the mark? What am I not doing right, because everything that you actually put in your mouth, you're either feeding a disease or you're fighting one. So the choice is actually yours. The other thing is hydrate more. So I have talked about 1 glass every 2 hours. That is going to help you to hydrate more. Remember, your brain and other functions really need hydration. So you really need to ensure that you're hydrating more often to even help with the excretion of the substances that are dislodged in our intestines. The other thing under wellness tips was, let us begin on reading food and nutrition labels. This is very important. There's a lot of information that is hidden there. And I think a majority of our supermarkets nowadays, they have nutritionists. I can't be too sure, but I think there's a number of them that have nutritionists that actually guide you, that if you're not able to read, or if you're able to read but not understand what that label means, there's somebody actually there to help you and actually direct you properly. So let us take advantage of people like those so that they can be able to help us understand some of these labels. Our manufacturers, these companies that manufacture food, remember, they also want to ensure that they are bringing in more money, and by doing that is that they're most likely to hide certain things in between your ingredients that you may actually not understand, and you might think, oh, I think this is healthy, it does not have this and this, but they have used other terms to confuse you. So it's very important that we start reading, get curious on what you're putting in your body. And the other thing is that have a wellness checkup. I believe that if you feel you're okay and you're healthy, really are you going to be inclined to visit a hospital, right? So it's very important we make this something, having regular checkups, right? Even if it's every 6 months, even if it's every year, it's very important, because some of these things develop as very small things, very minute things that we may actually think that is not a big deal, but then later on, a few years down the line or a few months down the line, it comes and it becomes something that shakes you so much, and it is something that could have actually been prevented if it was discovered early. So let us have these wellness checkups every now and then to just ensure that we are healthy, and if something is noticed, it can be taken care of early enough. The other thing is, don't skip breakfast. And I think especially the people who are working, we are more likely to skip breakfast because probably you slept late, you carried some of your work home, and so you wake up really exhausted and you just want to rush to the office and maybe just grab a coffee as you go to your office, and you fail to eat a proper breakfast. Breakfast is the first meal of the day, and that is why it's called breakfast. You're breaking a fast. So it's very important that when you're breaking this fast, you're putting in healthy foods. Yeah, if you can actually have a meal, and this is actually what I would recommend, if you can actually have a meal, it helps in reducing the snacking in between the main meals. If you have eaten breakfast properly fast, you're going to have energy to start the day. So the moment you get to the office, you're not irritable, yeah, you're not moody, you're able to work well with your colleagues, which means that your productivity levels are high. The other thing is that, what I have said, you are mostly going to avoid snacking. Every now and then you're reaching out for something and factors like those. So let us try so much. Do not skip breakfast. And the other thing and the last thing is get enough sleep. Try so much and get enough sleep. So this may not click maybe to some of us like it should, but it's very important. That sleep is very important, and we need to understand that sleeping for 7 to 8 hours, it does not mean you're lazy. You're just looking out for yourself. Remember, of late we've been having issues of mental health as well, so you really need to ensure that your brain is well rested, your brain is refreshed to start a new day. And the moment your brain is not well rested, your brain is not, refreshed to start a new day, your day starts off on a very bad note. So we really need to avoid that. The thing with not getting enough rest is that your body will now start producing what we call the stress hormones. And stress hormones expose you to diseases like hypertension. Stress hormones expose you to things like excessive weight gain. And I think earlier on we saw that weight correlates directly with development of some of these conditions. So it's very important. Check on your schedule, know what to do at what time so that you just ensure that you're well rested. And finally, let food be thy medicine. Well, this is not the complete quote, but this is part of the quote. Let food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. It's very important. Like I said earlier on, whatever you put in your mouth either feeds a disease or protects you from disease. So I think it's best that we make healthy choices, and remember the choices that we make today are the choices that are going to impact us the longest time, because some of these conditions are not a one-time thing. You eat unhealthy today, tomorrow you don't have it. But then if you keep up that pattern of eating unhealthy, it means that in the long run, you're going to be exposed to some of these conditions like cancer. So thank you so much. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Brendah. Let's get you back here.
Sorry, let me
yeah, this is beautiful, beautiful. There you are. Beautiful job. Beautiful job.
Thank you.
And I would encourage our listeners to, this will be on video, and to listen to it numerous times so that it sinks in. I had a question about vegetables. I love the rainbow. I love it. Now, to get the optimal nutrients, should you eat them raw, or can you lightly cook or steam some of the vegetables?
Okay, so a majority of the vegetables contain both what we call the water soluble and the fat soluble. So for the fat soluble, it means that these are the nutrients, or these are the vitamins that cannot be absorbed without the presence of oil or without the presence of fat. So we need to be sauteing them or something like that to ensure that they have somehow been exposed to some amount of oil or fat so that we can reap the maximum benefits from them. Yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. So sauteing is fine. Sauteing, lightly sauteing. Don't cook them so much that there's no nutrients left, but the sauteing is an excellent way, to prepare the vegetables.
Right.
Yeah, such important tips. And the processed food, we can't say enough about that because they're tasty and they're convenient. You talked about, we're all busy, so what's natural to reach for something? Oh, it tastes good, but there is a health price. There's a consequence.
Yeah, so we need to be on the lookout for things like those. And I think those tips that I provided, ensuring that you have breakfast, ensuring that, substitute these unhealthy snacks with our fruits, is going to help us so much in reducing the overweight and the obesity.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would encourage our listeners to take this video and listen to it, what Brendah has provided for us in this presentation, over and over, and share with your family members and your friends. And so it's like, wow, this is really, really vitally important information. The other thing, Brendah, I don't know that people, or a lot of people realize chronic diseases can be prevented. That's a new paradigm. You know, we think of an illness and we go to the doctor in the hospital, but you know, once a disease hits, it's very difficult. But I will tell you, even with a chronic illness, these dietary recommendations hold true. Even more important, if you are struggling with a chronic illness, go to your doctor, go to your healthcare provider, but listen to these nutrition tips that Brendah is so expertly providing.
Right, thank you. Yeah, actually, a majority of these chronic conditions are preventable, but we actually don't realize until we have these conditions, and then it now becomes another issue because we may be not able to be as productive as we were before. But we can put in as much energy as we can in seeking out some of this information on how we can prevent occurrence of these diseases. It's very important, actually. It also reduces the economic burden of our countries. So it's very important that we actually focus. Nutrition is quite important. Nutrition is something that we do on a daily basis. And I think I have mentioned over and over again that whatever you eat, you're either feeding a disease or you're preventing one. So it's important that we keep some of these small things in mind to help us in making our daily choices. And
absolutely, every bite counts.
Right.
I love how you said that. It's either going to help us or it's going to hurt us, one way or other.
Right.
So yeah, this is fantastic, Brendah, and we're so grateful. Is there a website or a way that our listeners can reach you or learn more about you?
Yes, I can provide my LinkedIn account details. But
okay,
I think
we'll be sure in the show notes. What we'll do is be sure to connect to your LinkedIn profile.
Yes. So I can maybe type in on the chat box on how they can reach me. If somebody has a question, they can also connect with me through my email. My email, I was typing my email address. So, okay, let me type it once more. So if somebody has a question, they can reach me easily through that email address.
Okay, beautiful.
Yes.
Kihara, Brendah.
2@gmail.com.
h2@gmail.com. Wonderful, right. Wonderful. And we'll include this also in the show notes. Brendah, I want to express my heartfelt thanks to you. You have worked so hard, and now you're looking to expand your reach and help more people. And I truly commend you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for this opportunity as well. I think we should be having more of this so that we can reach as many people as we can, so that we can ultimately reduce our statistics in terms of the non-communicable diseases.
I agree with you completely, and I can't wait to have you back on the show again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brendah.
Okay, right. Have a good day. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.